Tomorrow night is the second GOP debate at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox News in Southern California. It will take place at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. And considering we are on the eve of the second GOP debate, I figured tonight we may as well do a short stream previewing the debate, kind of telling you all my things to watch, candidates to watch, what does each candidate have to do. You get how an analysis works. I don't think we need to explain that. But yeah, that's all tonight, so stay tuned. And we are live tonight from the great state of Florida. Welcome, everyone, to the VinceDao Show. It is September 26th, the year of our Lord, 2023, and I am your preview-brained host, VinceDao. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Like I said, we're going old school, okay? I have paper notes prepared on each candidate and all the things to watch for. I want to preview tomorrow's GOP debate, talk about it, give you also my official predictions, because you guys know I'm a football fan. We're doing this sports mode style, okay? So I have a prediction for tomorrow. We may as well make an actual spread like Las Vegas does. Whatever, regardless, a lot to talk about. But first, before we do that, everyone be sure to leave a like right now on the stream. Let's get the stream to 50 likes. And as usual, if you would like to super chat tonight to support the show, feel free to do so. In fact, I know we got one for $2 from Dollar for Dollar, who says, I have been a channel member for 7 months and 14 days. Well, happy anniversary. I don't know what is significant about 7 months and 14 days. I frankly would not have a clue, but I appreciate the support, Dollar for Dollar. All right, with that said, let's just get right into this. So I'm going to go over each of the major candidates tonight, tell you the things to watch, and at the end, I will issue an official prediction for how I think it's going to go tomorrow. So let's get all into that. So, biggest story of the night, of course, is going to be the person who is absent from tomorrow's debate, who is, of course, Donald Trump. So, Donald Trump, we'll start there. I'm going to go Trump, DeSantis, then Vivek, and then move on to the clown car, okay? But really quickly, okay, let's talk a little bit about the Trump thing. Donald Trump, once again, has chosen to skip this debate. And, you know, I honestly, at this point, unless the race gets remotely super competitive, it is basically a debate for second place. And while for my own entertainment's sake, I certainly would like to see Donald Trump debate, and I think everyone, you know, really deep down would enjoy watching that. Realistically, I think we all kind of mutually understand he doesn't have much of a practical reason to. You know, he doesn't need the GOP debate. The GOP debate needs him. The only thing that could possibly come from that is give basically the other candidates a bigger platform. And so for a strategic purpose, skipping the debate, once again, I don't think it's the biggest deal. I don't think it's going to hurt him or really make any difference. With that said, I do want to talk about what Trump is going to be skipping the debate for, because I think this is interesting. So Trump has announced, this was actually about a month ago, a couple weeks ago, that instead of going to the debate, he's going to be giving a speech at a non-union Macomb County, Michigan automotive parts manufacturer. So he's speaking to auto workers in the middle of Michigan. Why is that significant, and why do I say I think that's actually a very good look? And I think if you're going to skip a GOP debate, this is the prime place to go, is look at the contrast there, right? The fact that this debate is taking place in Southern California at the Reagan Library, funny enough, which is about 20 minutes from where I grew up, right down the 118. But regardless, notice the contrast there. Okay, so Trump can very easily make the message, hey, look, while all these other candidates are basically speaking to the donor class, the GOP Orange County donor class out in Southern California, here I am in Michigan with my people, with my base, a true kind of man of the people vibe. And so honestly, I think, like I said, if you're going to skip the debate, doing this to skip the debate is brilliant, because you could not draw a stronger contrast between speaking to a bunch of basically rich people in California out at the Reagan Library versus Donald Trump speaking out in Michigan. And you're going to have context that even adds even more to this, because as you know, there's a big time auto worker strike going on right now, which I don't think that was planned, okay, in fairness, right? Because he announced this a couple weeks ago, but the fact that as of, I believe, just last week, the United Auto Workers did decide to go on strike, that only shines more attention to all of this. So I think it's a good look for Trump. I think going forward, it's really going to make this case that he is the only candidate super serious about winning the Rust Belt or being competitive in the Rust Belt. And like I said, I think him, while everyone else is in California, him going to Michigan, I think is a good look, and I think the best thing you can do to skip this debate. Obviously, the last debate, he did that Twitter interview with Tucker Carlson, and while I didn't think it was a terrible idea, you know, obviously Tucker is great, you know, it definitely was kind of a middle finger to Fox News. Forget the Fox News aspect now, okay? So if at the first debate, you were just going to take a shot at Fox News by not showing up, all right, out of the way now, okay, now let's get serious about this actual campaign, and I think that's what it's showing is, look, okay, now we're going to go to the Midwest and campaign while all these GOP people are trying to win over a bunch of donors in California. I think that's a good look. I think in many ways, I think this is what Trump should just do going forward, because there's going to be, I believe, 1 or 2 more debates after this at the Reagan Library as well. Every time they go to the Reagan Library, no hate against basically my hometown. I grew up in the town next to it, but I'm going to claim it, okay? No hate on my hometown where that is, but we know it's California. We know he's speaking, that debate is basically for the old guard GOP donors, the Reagan Library after all, right? Who is a part of that coalition? Who's showing up to that thing? You know, I think next debate, go to Pennsylvania. After that, go to Ohio, whatever it is. That's what you got to do now, you know? Fox News shot out of the way. Now go on and do this. I think, again, if Trump's going to skip the debate for any reason, this is a good reason. This is a good place to go. I think it's a good optical look for him. With that said, moving on now to our talk about some of these other candidates. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis. All right. So you contextualize all of this. I will say this too, okay? I've been very critical of the DeSantis campaign so far, and I think for good reason. I think for very good reason, because it's an undeniable fact. Most honest, good faith DeSantis people wouldn't even disagree with me. This campaign has started out rather shaky, obviously. With that said, I think in many ways that first sort of blow is over. So here's the important part to point out too, is we're moving now into a new gear of the primary cycle. Summer and spring was kind of phase 1. Now you're going into phase 2, where that first wave of the memes of him being awkward or making fun of him, Meatball Raw and all of that stuff, all of that is starting to fade, right? And we're actually going to talk about that kind of on the flip side when it comes to Vivek Ramaswamy in a second, and how he now is going to have to sort of reinvent himself or push harder too. But on the topic of DeSantis, you know, that first kind of blow of him being an awkward, weird guy, now he can kind of move on past that. So what I will say for Ron is that tomorrow night's going to be very big in terms of donors, okay? This is going to be the big thing to watch for him, because realistically, one debate's not going to totally shake this up, you know, and realistically, he's still probably going to walk out tomorrow night down 40, 50 points, 30 points, however much it is to Donald Trump. But the big thing for him tomorrow is going to be re-inspiring to some degree the confidence of his donor class. Because as you're familiar with, there's a lot of big money in the GOP that was originally backing Ron DeSantis for president. But as you may have heard from recent headlines and all that different stuff, a lot of DeSantis's donors have now pulled out. Okay, and you may have heard about this. They're pulling out. They don't have a lot of confidence in the way this campaign is going. Well, if you're Ron DeSantis, forget tomorrow night trying to beat Trump in the polls for a second. Don't try too hard, do any of that. This really, I think, is your chance to at least win back the financial support. And why do I keep talking about donors? Why do I keep saying that's what Ron DeSantis' target needs to be tomorrow night? Well, because again, I'm going to keep, maybe this is hometown bias, but I'm going to keep hearkening back to the fact that this debate is taking place at the Reagan Library in Southern California, right? So we know where that is. That's the town where Ronald Reagan grew up in, and a lot of the attendance at that debate is going to be old Orange County Republican money, Newport Beach area, right? These are the leftover old guard from the Reagan-Bush coalition. And these still, to this day, that Southern California money is still what finances a lot of the GOP, particularly a lot of the GOP establishment. This potentially, I believe already has been, but again, now is his chance to win it back. This is a big donor base for Ron DeSantis. And in many ways, I'd make the case that California, in terms of their GOP, is a very DeSantis state. In fact, and this may be a bold prediction, I think if DeSantis in the end ends up winning any states at this point in the primary, I think one of them is going to be California. Because that sort of it's hard to describe, but like I said, I grew up there. I'm just kind of telling you how it is, right? That kind of California conservative mentality, especially him drawing the contrast because Florida is the state where a lot of California conservatives wish they lived. I think it is a very DeSantis friendly state. The crowd's going to be on DeSantis' side. A lot of DeSantis' people are going to be in that crowd. And so, like I said, this really is going to be a big night for him in terms of securing, at least inspiring enough confidence to where that California Republican donor base that, like I said, very big for him. And if they fully defund him, if they fully lose confidence, the campaign's over totally. I mean, it basically already is at this point. He's, at this point trying to campaign for second place, but that's going to be very important. That's going to be very important for the immediate future of this campaign, because if he totally bombs tomorrow night or he totally just fails to impress, that's going to lose the number one donor base, right? So this debate really setting up in all regards it should be, I'm not saying it will, but it should be a very DeSantis friendly night. When you combine the fact, again, it's taking place in California, the Republican Party out there is very friendly to DeSantis. When you add on that, it's the Reagan Library, there's going to be a lot of Orange County money, a lot of his donor base out there in that part of the country, especially. This is going to be a big night. He needs to inspire confidence, at least with his donors, right? And don't get me wrong, in terms of overall viewership, I don't think it's going to be very watched. Heck, look at the viewership of this stream right now. Not a lot of people even seem to care a whole lot about this debate, but I guarantee you the potential DeSantis donor class will be watching. He, more than anything, needs to inspire confidence. So if I were him, honestly, that would even be my mentality going into these answers, the way he answers questions. Don't even be just in a pure practical sense, when you're at this point of desperation that his campaign is at right now, don't even necessarily try to be winning over the Trump base or whatever it is. Just speak, because that's basically going to be his platform, right? That he's speaking to that night. Just speak directly to that California donor class. That's going to be very big for him. That's going to be very important for him. And, frankly, we'll see what happens on that front. Like I said, later in the night, I'm going to give my predictions on how I think the debate is actually going to go. But if you're on DeSantis, that's the big thing to watch, is winning over the California Republican donor class. Okay, moving on now. Next guy, the crowd favorite in many ways, right? Vivek Ramaswamy. What's his kind of read? What's kind of his feel going into the night? Well, if I were to tell you the truth, I think he needs to grab back the attention. That's going to be his big thing. Because I think most of you all would agree. In many ways, as a candidate, Vivek is hype. He is buzz. He's a very online candidate. That's where he's the most popular, is the internet. So it's very important in terms of his campaign that he constantly be making waves, constantly be making thunder. If you're a candidate like more so a Trump or DeSantis, that's an established entity already, it doesn't matter as much. But for someone like Vivek, generating buzz is everything. And it seems to me that after August, after that first debate, the buzz around him has kind of faded. And I think many of you would agree, on that, right? In the summer, he was the absolute talk of the town. That debate, he's totally stole the show. But in the weeks since then, he just has, have you really heard from him? Do we know what he's up to? Has his name been spammed around constantly? Not really. Now, is that entirely his fault? I would say no, not really, because he's still out here doing the interviews, doing the podcast, still, he's still as active as he was before. Just the difference is, at a certain point, right? How many MSNBC interviews can you do? You watch a few, oh, that was cool. Oh, that was fun. But then again and again, they lose kind of the hype. They lose kind of the buzz around him, right? And that seems to be the vibe, is that the month of September just kind of been a sleepy month overall for him. So if I were Vivek going into this debate, I would say he needs to once again become the star of the show. Now, I think Ron DeSantis is going to try to play off a little bit differently from the first debate, like I said. And that's the other thing, is that now it's something he's going to have to go and take, because in August, he was the number one talk of the GOP, right? The buzz was all around him. All the candidates went after him, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, it's been kind of a sleepy month for him. California, I will keep saying this because it's true, California is a very DeSantis-friendly state in terms of the GOP there. So he's going to really have to manage to figure out a way to steal the thunder, become the Flash again. And like I said, it's more important for Vivek than any of these other candidates, because that's what he's running on. He's running on the buzz. He's running on the excitement. It seems like it's not that he's done anything catastrophically bad, but it seems like it's sort of cooled off a little bit. He needs to light the flame again tomorrow night, and that's going to be very important for him to do. And I also think that's going to be harder for him to do. It will be harder for him to do. I'm not saying he can't, but it will be harder because, again, this will probably be not as viewed as the other night. I don't think, as many people are actually going to watch tomorrow's debate. But also, we'll see. Like I said, I think you're going to see more focus around DeSantis tomorrow night, but we'll have to see. Last thing I had written down here is that he needs to be prepared for Christie. Needs to be prepared there, because Christie, I guarantee you, is going to go after DeSantis again, and maybe even go after DeSantis harder than the first debate. Why is that? If you're wondering, the real reason is because Christie, and people understand this at this point, you saw the exchange even behind the scenes, what happened when they turned off the cameras during the commercial break. Christie's basically in this race to be an attack dog for Ron DeSantis. That's the truth, right? Christie is out here doing the dirty work, attacking. That's why he's attacking Vivek so much and not any other candidate, because DeSantis wants to attack Vivek, but he doesn't want to get his hands dirty as much, right? So he's using Christie as sort of that proxy. You have to be prepared. Christie is going to be... I just bit my tooth. Ow. Christie is going to be just as... fiery as last time, and Vivek needs to be prepared for that. He absolutely does. And, honestly, the first debate, I thought he did fine. I thought he did just fine against your Nikki Haley's, your Christie's, but I will point out, just as a matter of discussion that you saw around it all, a lot of people were saying what? They were saying, oh, Christie destroyed Vivek and blah, 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 this and that. Don't get me wrong. A lot of those people are neocons, and I know how it is. But he did get that one-liner about Obama that Vivek kind of had to be on defense about and all that stuff. So for Vivek, it's going to be very important. This time around, leave no room for doubt when it comes to Christie. Don't have the discussion split where some people thought Christie destroyed you and only your supporters thought you destroyed Christie. You have to dominate Christie, okay? So he needs to be prepared. I guarantee you that fat, gigantic neocon pig is going to be probably even more aggressive than the first debate. Vivek needs to be prepared, okay? And Vivek needs to really, know what he's going to say, know how he's going to clap back. And, it's going to be interesting kind of seeing him. The issue, I think, with Vivek, when it comes to dealing with, say, a Christie, is Christie is an a-hole, okay? Christie is a complete jerk and, just a terrible, unlikable person. But when it comes to Vivek, he always, as you kind of see, plays the nice guy, right? I don't think the Republican Obama comparisons are necessarily wrong in the sense that they have similar personalities when you compare to Obama and 08, the similar presentation style, right? And that does good when you're making a speech. That does good when you're on a longer podcast. But in that 30-second debate moment, it's blood sports, right? And so I think that's part of the reason why some people, again, I don't even agree with it, but that's why I think some people made the argument that Christie destroyed Vivek is because he got the one-liners in and he was on offense. So it's gonna be very interesting because I think if you're Vivek, you have to get your hands maybe a little more dirty just in terms of going on offense. He's not much of an offensive guy. He's more so of a, kind of the nice guy, but we'll have to see what happens there. Okay. All right. Pivoting now on to Christie. We now move on to the clown collar of candidates. So just because we were just talking about how Vivek Christie is going to be a big thing to watch, I guarantee you, Chris Christie tomorrow is going to try to end Vivek's campaign on behalf of DeSantis. That's what's really going on here, right? So, number one, because I don't even think Chris is really in the race to win it. I think he understands at this point he's kind of he's kind of doing DeSantis's dirty work. So his goal tomorrow night is going to be to take Vivek out of the race and by proxy just damage Trump because you're anti-MAGA and you're making the anti-MAGA side look good, right? So that's going to be his goal tomorrow night. How successful will he be? Frankly, like I said, well, wait for the prediction. But that's all that we really have to say about the fat New Jersey neocon is he's going to be in this debate tomorrow to try to end Vivek's campaign on behalf of DeSantis. That's all I have to say about him. Okay, moving on here to our next candidate, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley. And people know Nikki Haley is someone I personally can't stand. I cannot stand that sanctimonious neocon girl boss persona. With that said, again, this is all just analysis, so let me be clear about that. This will be a big night for her. Because for the same reason that DeSantis is popular among the California GOP simply because he is the non-Trump candidate, I think Nikki Haley has a chance to be very popular in the California GOP because she sort of fits in that archetype of the California conservative. You know what I mean? She has the girl boss thing going on. Oh, I'm lady president, blah, blah, blah. Something that a lot of people in other parts of the country find revolting. But California suburbanites, California suburban Republicans, I could very much see them eating that up. And then, of course, you consider her on the abortion issue and some of the social issues. She's a more socially liberal candidate, both between her presentation as the conservative feminist girl boss and on certain issues like abortion and all of that stuff. I think she has a chance to really resonate out there in California. And with that same donor class that, like I said, DeSantis is going to be trying to make a play for tomorrow night. And that will be interesting because I think if Nikki Haley has a stronger showing, we're going to leave the night thinking, oh, well, there she goes again with her neocon bogus nonsense and we don't like her, whatever. But keep an eye out because I think if she objectively does good just in terms of handling the debate, you could see her maybe rip away at some of Ron DeSantis' donors, okay? So if I were Ron DeSantis, I'd actually keep an eye on Nikki Haley that tomorrow night. Not because you're necessarily at odds with each other, right? She's not really his biggest rival, but because, like I said, considering this is the Ronald Reagan Library debate, you have to keep donors and the California donor class in the back of your head. So if anyone really risks screwing up the night for DeSantis in terms of those donors, it's going to be Nikki Haley. If you're Ron DeSantis, I don't know if you want to attack Nikki Haley personally or start a war, but you're just going to want to hope she doesn't really land, she doesn't really stick, she doesn't really do anything memorable, because her, of all people, in terms of that California GOP, can throw a wrench into the donor base of Ron DeSantis, okay? And that's very interesting because I don't like Nikki Haley. I think she's subversive and all that stuff. But in this race, especially in this debate, unexpectedly maybe, but she kind of is doing, in the same way Chris Christie is sort of doing some dirty work for DeSantis, I'd argue, at least by proxy in this debate, Haley is kind of doing some dirty work on behalf of Donald Trump because, like I said, if Nikki ends up sort of stealing DeSantis' donors out there in California, it's kind of a wrench in the wheel if that's the right analogy, you know what I mean? So that's something I'd keep an eye on. If people do start going after Nikki Haley, if Chris Christie, if even Ron DeSantis starts going after Nikki Haley and people think, where did that come from? That's the reason why. Keep an eye on that. I would say the same about Tim Scott. That's really all I have to say about Tim Scott. I mean, no one is super excited or interested in his candidacy really at all whatsoever. But in terms of, South Carolina, Tim Scott, he has some of the potential to maybe win over some California Republicans as well. I would say Nikki Haley more so is going to be the thunder in that regard, but, same thing to say about that. All right, moving on here, closing out our clown car. Who else is even in this race? Well, let's talk about Mike Pence. Okay, Mike Pence. What are we going to do about Mike Pence? Why is Mike Pence still in this race? Okay, I struggle to figure it out, exactly what he's trying to do here, okay? Because I can see what Christie's doing. I figured it out now. Okay, you're an attack dog for Ron DeSantis. I can see what Nikki Haley's doing, which is, in some ways, she's kind of being an attack dog for Donald Trump in a very complicated way, right? Not direct, but in a very strange and odd way. That's kind of is actually what's happening. What is Mike Pence doing here? Because if Mike Pence is in this race to spite Donald Trump like it would seem like he is he really doing that? Because if anyone's done damage to Donald Trump's campaign, Chris Christie, I see what is Mike Pence doing? Because I think if anything, at this point, Mike Pence is basically just taking away votes from Ron DeSantis of all people, right? Because no hardcore Trump supporter is going to vote for Mike Pence, obviously. But Mike Pence is not being effectively anti-Trump enough to do what Chris Christie is doing, because half of the time he says, well, under Trump's administration, here's what I did and I did. It's just very incoherent. So that's the thing. I don't really think Mike Pence's campaign at the moment really has much of an identity. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I don't understand really why he's in this race or what he's trying to accomplish in this race. And so he's kind of just a big question mark. I don't say much to say about him. If I were him, I would just make myself the pro-life candidate. That's basically what I would make my identity on, because I don't really understand what else. Like, what is he doing? What is he there to? I don't fully understand it. But he obviously is the most conservative, the most pro-life on the issue of abortion. He plays hard into that evangelical vote. So I'd expect him maybe to try to just focus on that tomorrow night. Honestly, I don't know. It's Mike Pence. What are you going to say? All right, last thing before we get into our predictions here, and I'll read super chats in a second. So feel free to do so if you want me to read your thoughts or predictions or whatever on the stream. We got through the candidates. One big thing I will say, the biggest issue to watch tomorrow is going to be abortion. It's going to be the single biggest issue to keep an eye on particularly. Obviously, they're going to talk about everything, talk about all the usual stuff, but notice this has kind of been a debate within conservatism lately. You have Trump's recent comments, which frankly were taken somewhat out of context, but I understand, a lot of people weren't happy with. And, some people are saying, you can't retreat at all on pro-life. Other people are saying, well, you need to be electable. Again, this is going to be a big thing to watch, okay? The challenge for every candidate tomorrow, and whoever really can do this may look stronger by the end of the night, is who can find a political position on abortion that both pleases the side of pro-life, it pleases the pro-life camp, but also seems reasonably electable. That's going to be the big thing to watch. That's going to be, especially in California, where, again, a lot of that crowd is going to be considering, okay, I agree with you on this abortion stuff, but is what you're saying electable? That's going to be a big issue tomorrow night. I think it's going to be the biggest wedge issue of every single candidate, because where each candidate takes us, because this issue is like walking on eggshells in a lot of ways, because if you're a Republican trying to both appeal to the Republican electorate, but also the general election, all of that, it's like walking on eggshells between trying to keep pro-life happy, but not trying to seem too quote unquote extreme on the issue. Just saying overall, it's going to be very interesting tomorrow night. And, I'll be curious to see, for instance, like, what does Ron DeSantis do on abortion? Okay. Because you've had kind of Trump attack him over the heartbeat bill and some of the Trump camp out there. It's very interesting to see. This will be interesting for DeSantis, because there's two avenues he can take there. Either A, he can double down. He can try to flank Trump in terms of the pro-life stuff and say, nope, I'm more pro-life than Trump, I'm going down this route. But then other people will scratch heads saying, well, you claim to be the more electable candidate, and this might not be electable in a general election. So that'll be interesting. That's one path he can take. Or the other path he can take is kind of try to take a more moderate one and say, okay, we'll settle at 15 weeks or keep it ambiguous. That'll be very interesting strategically to see, right? It'll be interesting strategically to see. And then I'm sure Mike Pence is going to take the most firm pro-life stance. It'll be interesting to see how the other candidates respond to that, right? Because he's probably going to try to accuse every single candidate on that stage besides him of being, too pro-choice or not pro-life enough. It'll be very interesting to see. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's all going to go down, but I would say of any issue they talk about tomorrow night, that's the most intriguing one. That's the most intriguing one. That's definitely, you know, I'll be very curious to see how each candidate handles that, especially the ones who have been a little bit ambiguous on the abortion stuff so far. All right, with that said, before we get into my predictions for what I think is actually going to happen tomorrow night, let me read some of your super chats really quickly, and then we will move on here. So let's get really quickly to these super chats. I want to see what you guys actually think of, you know, the things I'm saying now. So let's take a look. Okay, here we go. Super chat time. $1 for $1 for $2. Oh, I read this one. Says, I've been a channel member for 7 months and 14 days. So true, $1 for $1. All right, here we go. We got a $5 one from... Who sent that in? Sorry, Streamlabs is being slow. Okay, Zeb Boykin for $5 says, Trump loses my vote if VP pick is female. Sue me. Thank you for the $5. Zeb Boykin. Well, I've heard he's actually moving away from that direction, because I'm very fearful of the, you know, whole diversity pick thing too that was being entertained. But I've heard things to the contrary in that regard. So I mean, we'll see what happens. Thank you for the $5, Zeb Boykin. Appreciate it very much. Okay, Christopher for $5 says, may I ask your opinion on the Democrats possibly running Harris for president instead of Biden to race and gender bait their constituents? Thanks. And that's from Christopher. Hold on, let me take a sip of water. Okay, my thoughts on this. See, this is people, a lot of, I noticed the very popular theory is people think they're going to try to take Biden out of the race. And maybe that happens. Obviously, there's obvious reasons why the Democrats may want to get rid of Biden. But truthfully, I actually think they're trying to avoid it for this very reason right here, which is, yes, while that certainly will be the talking point if Kamala Harris does run for president or becomes the nominee, hey, racism, hey, diversity, all this stuff. The overwhelming consensus, and even the Democrat consultants and pollsters know this, is that Kamala Harris is very unpopular, okay? She's, I believe by polls, the most unpopular vice president in American history. Nobody really likes her. Even a lot of people on the liberal side, on the left, don't like her. A lot of more moderate liberals think she's annoying. The far left thinks she's not progressive enough and kind of just token progressive. I've heard that argument made many times. So, you know, I think that if they do get rid of Biden, it does seem to me, and you see this by just recent behavior in their party and in the media and all of that stuff, then the alternative choice to Biden in the Democrats' eyes is obviously Gavin Newsom. Now, the reason why I think they're trying to avoid, because some people are saying, okay, well, if they want Newsom, why don't they just do it? Newsom would be way more electable than Biden. It seems easy, all this stuff, is this very issue we're talking about here. Which is that, think about it. If they get rid of Biden, or if they say Biden's not going to run for re-election, whatever it is, then you're going to see a pretty sizable camp within the Democrat Party who says, hey, wait a minute. Kamala Harris is a black woman. She's also the vice president, so she's the natural successor to Joe Biden. Why are you guys going for this white guy, Gavin Newsom? So you're going to see half the Democrat Party, or probably the very loud 20 to 30% like progressive minority, but still a very large faction of the Democrat Party will say that. And then the older Democrats, the ones who vote more maybe, will say, okay, guys, but we need to beat the Republicans. And you and I both know Kamala Harris is not electable. And they'll say, what do you mean she's not electable? Is it because she's a black woman? Are you racist? So this is why, maybe a hot take, I honestly think that the Democrats are going to do the best of their ability to keep Biden as their nominee. Because people say, oh, well, Gavin Newsom would be such an easier option, right? True, maybe true, by the way. I also don't necessarily buy that idea, but I see the logic. The problem is you have a Kamala Harris problem. Because, again, if you have it between Gavin and Kamala obviously is vice president, it's the natural successor, and you ask yourself as the Democrats, why are you guys picking the white guy over the natural black woman successor? They're going to call each other racist, all of that stuff. I think deep down, the Democrats kind of actually want to avoid that civil war because it may do them more harm than good. Because Gavin Newsom in the end would win that primary, my prediction. He definitely would. But it's going to tear the party apart. And the diversity coalition is going to be very loud about the fact that, you know, you countered them, you violated the DEI rules of the Democratic Party, and it's a civil war that I think they honestly want to avoid, because it would, just think about it, it would tear the party apart and may cause a civil war in the party, and that would leave them maybe in a weaker position than if they just stuck with Biden. You see what I'm saying? So that's my opinion on it. That's my opinion on that. I don't think there's any scenario where Kamala Harris is the Democrat nominee, because if they get rid of Biden, I think they're going to run Newsom, because they, you know, deep down, they also kind of understand themselves that Kamala's not electable and no one really likes her. But having to go through that civil war with Kamala Harris in the end may tear apart their party, and I honestly think they want to avoid it. So there's my answer to that question. Thank you for the $5, Christopher. And Real Texan Politics for $2 says, just heard that Matt Gaetz is filing a motion to vacate. Well, you know, well, I doubt it will pass, but, you know, we could definitely use a better speaker than McCarthy. But, you know, maybe in 2024. Who knows? I don't know. But thank you for the $2, Real Texan Politics. All right, and Christopher for $5. Christopher Laurie, the last one was from Christopher Allseen. Christopher Laurie for $5 says, Trump so far has better optics this time around. The other GOP candidates are so out of touch. Tomorrow will just be 2004 platform flashback. Well, that's basically what the first GOP debate was, right? With the exception of Vivek and a little bit of DeSantis moments, yeah, most candidates out there were basically talking about George Bush era talking points. And like I said, when you consider the fact that tomorrow is the donor debate, it's in California, they're trying to win over Orange County money, expect that to be even worse than it was the first debate. So yeah, I definitely think you're going to see more 2004 era nonsense. So if you would like to have the debate be bearable, we probably here on this channel, folks, will be doing a watch party of the debate at 9. Because, you know, the first debate, I was obviously at it, so I couldn't, but I was very unsure how the copyright would be. Because it is fair use, it is legal, but I don't know if Fox is striking that stuff. I've seen plenty of people do the watch party of the first debate, so I think we should be fine in that regard. So, tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, join us. We can all watch the GOP debate together. Wouldn't that be fun? We'll all grab our popcorn and we'll do that. So, yeah, thank you for the $5, Christopher. Appreciate it very much. All right, and if we're all caught up now on our super chats. Oh, we are not caught up on our super chats. Okay, here we go. Gianna for $2 says Kamala is she's a farming, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube in terms of calling her it, okay? She's a piece of farming equipment used to break up soil. So true. Thank you for the $2, Gianna. I appreciate it very much. And Christopher Allseen for $5 says, I think Vivek can try to swing Democrat voters that are unsure of Biden in regards to what you said about the Democrat Civil War. I think he can do it. Thank you for the $5, Christopher. I mean, I don't know if it's even a Vivek thing or a particular candidate thing. I just think that if you do get down to a situation where they get rid of Biden, it's going to be a civil war between Gavin and the Kamala coalition, and we'll see what would happen. And honestly, you know, here's another kind of third party thing people forget about. What about RFK? I'm not saying he would win the Democrat primary, but it would be, he's kind of another knife in that equation, right? Because he could definitely get 10 to 20%, maybe even 30%. There are a lot of Democrat voters. I'm not saying, I'm not really giving them credit because they should be switching parties, but don't get me wrong, there are a lot of Democrat voters that are sick and tired of the quote unquote, the woke, right? The very progressive wing of their party. And I'm sure Gavin, especially if he's up against Kamala Harris, who's screaming diversity the whole time, I'm sure Gavin will try to appeal to those people. But, you know, California is not in a good position either. Okay, California is a failed state, a failed economy, a failed society, and even a lot of my Californians back home who are Democrats complain about that stuff. So I also think that'd be an interesting thing to watch. People totally forget. I totally forgot. I just remembered. RFK is a factor in that race too. So we'd have to see. We'd have to see what happens. It would be interesting to say the least. Thank you for the $5, Christopher. Appreciate it very much. Real Texan Politics for $5 says, also, the Canadian Speaker of the House resigned today over that H-man veteran controversy. Well, I mean, at least he resigned, but how do you let that happen? I still want the explanation of how exactly you let that happen, okay? Because at first, people made it sound like, oh, they accidentally brought in an Azov battalion guy, who I could understand how that accidentally happens. How do you accidentally find an old guy who is literally an SS, okay? An SS war veteran. You didn't think to ask, hey, why is this guy so old? What? Huh? Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Thank you for the $5, Real Texan Politics. And last one here, Sheeny Beanie for $2 says, this is just a random $2. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, one more. Zeb Boykin for $5 says, Poland also filed extradition for the SS vet for war crimes. Thank you very much, Zeb Boykin, for the $5. The whole story is just ridiculous. Again, how do you allow this to happen? But yeah, thank you for the $5, Zeb. And what a disaster. What a disaster Canada is. That's but I mean, honestly, it's pretty funny. Okay? It's hilarious that they allowed that to happen, but oh, Canada, what are we gonna do with you? Although, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they basically do the same thing again at the State of the Union. So we'll have to see. All right, that's it, folks. Thanks for the super chats. We'll read more later here in a second. But like I said, I now want to get into my official prediction for what I think is going to happen tomorrow. Okay, so everything before was analysis. I'm like, here's what I think each candidate should do. Here's what to watch. All right, sports betting time in a satirical way. What's the spread tomorrow? Who's going to cover? Who's going to not cover? All right, official prediction for tomorrow. Okay. And again, folks, let me be clear. This is my objective way that I see it, okay? I'm not being partisan. I'm just saying, here's my prediction for how it will go, okay? All right. I may regret this horribly, all right? And tomorrow night on the watch party, if it's the opposite of this and it's what people probably expect, then you're all entitled to make fun of me. But truthfully, I actually think Ron DeSantis is going to do a lot better than the first debate. I know. What makes you say that, Vince? Well, I don't know. I have a gut instinct. Again, California, he'll be in front of his people, in front of his donors. He may, by the way, not really give as MAGA-based answers on the questions, but like I said in the beginning, his agenda tomorrow is win back your donor base, inspire the confidence of that Southern California GOP money that he needs to keep his campaign alive at this point. I think you're going to see him do better. I've watched some of his interviews recently. Again, the meme of early in his campaign when he launched on Twitter and he sucked and all of that stuff, he seems now to be a little bit more polished, figuring out a little bit when it comes to the, just speaking like a normal human being, not speaking like an alien from another planet, acting relatively human. He seems to be improving a little bit. Now, again, I get it. I don't know how people are going to react to that. But my prediction, not my partisan take, but my prediction is I don't think he tears the house down because he's just not that type of guy. Ron DeSantis is not a tear the house down type of guy. But I think he comes away from that inspiring a little more confidence than the first debate. If I were him, he's probably not going to come out screaming like the first debate and like everyone is responding to it thinking, what is he doing? Why is he just yelling on the mic? That's not him. That's not what he does. Why is he talking? What is he? I don't think you're going to see that, right? I think he's just going to try to be more so himself. And because of the environment and situation he will be in that California crowd, in that environment, again, I would expect he's not going to try to be Trumpian on the issues. I think he's going to try to be more milquetoast because, again, his audience tomorrow, at least, if I were him trying to just run a good campaign, right? His audience tomorrow is not going to be the Trump base because I think he understands at this point he's not going to win them, right? He's just, it's a long shot now. he might turn a little bit more kind of milquetoast, because he's going to be speaking to the country club Republicans. He might turn a little bit more in that direction and maybe be more composed and just kind of be himself. And I think he leaves tomorrow coming off as better, right? Maybe just being more memorable, seeming more notable than the first debate. And I predict that he does come off tomorrow. Again, I don't think he's going to really shoot up all that much in the polls or whatever, but I think he comes out tomorrow with a lot more donors. Again, that is my prediction. That is my prediction. Okay? I could be terribly wrong about that, because every time so far that the DeSantis people have said, oh, here's where he's going to change the game, he never did it. Wait for his launch announcement. Launch announcement was a disaster, and the Twitter broke when he was doing it. Okay, wait for the first debate. He really didn't do all that much in the first debate. He was just kind of screaming and weird, and really the spotlight was way more on Vivek than him. I'm just saying, I think tomorrow night goes a little bit better for him. That's my prediction on the DeSantis front. As for Vivek, so if you take the first debate, okay, Vivek's like first place here, DeSantis like second place here. I think this debate, the podium distance may be a little closer. I think Vivek will do well, as he always does, because he's a good speaker. But again, this is just my prediction. I don't think he's going to have the same amount of thunder as the first debate, right? He may not excite people as much because people are more familiar with him at this point. So the buzz isn't just quite there necessarily. And, I think you may see him tomorrow. I'm not going to use the word vulnerable, but maybe in a position that is not the most favorable to him, because everyone's going to be nasty to him tomorrow, especially Christie. Like I said, Christie's going to be trying to end his campaign. I'm sure Mike Pence is probably going to be trying to do the same thing. And when the gloves are truly off, and Vivek is trying to argue back instead of just kind of give his MLK style speech to the people, I don't know if that's necessarily his best position, like he's the best at that. So, like I said, I just don't think he tears the house down as much as he did in the first debate. Kind of a B tier performance, right? In the same regard, I think you see maybe a B plus performance. And again, when you compare to what that was in the first debate, it's a little bit better for Ron, a little bit worse for Vivek. And, even in Vivek's head, you have to wonder, how long does he plan to stay in this race? Because if the logic for him is what most people think he's really trying to do, which is campaign for the vice president spot, or he wants a job in the Trump cabinet, you may even make the argument deep down in his head, he's trying to gear down a little bit of his noise so that way he can kind of fall in behind Trump and kind of give over his energy to Trump. Again, this is, of course, speculating that that's why he's in the race. I mean, nobody knows for sure why he's in the race, but, that's something to think about. If that's what he's trying to do, then that would be interesting, right? Maybe that's part of why this month it seems like he's been a little quieter, because he's trying to, okay, I made my noise, I had my fun, okay, let's kind of wind this down a little bit so that way I can get behind Trump, because if he's a competitive guy in the race come the Iowa caucus, you have to imagine maybe that relationship with Trump starts to get a little more friction. He wants to kind of avoid that risk if that's what he's trying to do. So, I mean, who knows? Like I said, it's all going to come down to Vivek has to be very prepared to deal with Christie. If he's not, if he's on defense too much, then like I said, you want to leave no room for doubt. Don't let anyone leave saying Christie destroyed Vivek in their subjective opinion. Leave no room for error. And then, like I said, getting into sort of my prediction that I hinted at earlier in the show with Nikki Haley, I think you'll see Nikki Haley gain some more support tomorrow too because of that California donor base, okay? We will leave saying, oh, there goes Nikki Haley again with her girl boss neocon nonsense that no one likes, but I guarantee you, with that audience out there in California, she's going to win over some people. She's going to win over some people with the California conservative mentality. And lastly, ultimately, overall, in the end, I don't think the debate will make that many headlines. I don't think it will be as watched as the first debate or, really cared about as much. And I think in the end, Trump will run away with not much to worry about once again. Even if Ron DeSantis does better. even if Nikki Haley does better, like I sort of am predicting here, is it really going to make a difference? No, not really. I don't think enough people will be watching the GOP debate for anyone to matter enough, you know, for anyone to really have their whole campaign changed by tomorrow night. But even so, you know, again, if you're Donald Trump, you're basically campaigning for the general election at this point, and that's kind of how it is. So, all right, with that said, there's my full analysis on what prediction and analysis of what I think is going to happen tomorrow. It is 8:50. We'll do super chats here for about 10 minutes, so I would love to hear what you guys think. But yeah, we're now open for super chats. Any questions, comments, Q&A, thoughts, your own prediction, feel free to do so. We'll do that here for about 10 minutes and then call it a night. So let's read some of these super chats here. I think we got one while I was doing the predictions. Yes, here it is. Gabe R for $5 says, I think Biden will resign within 70 days of getting elected. Thank you for the $5, Gabe. I could certainly see that. I don't think that's a far out prediction at all. I think if Biden does, quote unquote, win the next election, end quote, how is he going to make it to 2028? It just doesn't seem possible. As little as he does on a regular basis, you know, he'll fake some type of injury or something. I don't see how the guy makes it another 4 years. He'd be 86, by the way. He'd be 86. And there are plenty of 86-year-olds that probably could handle it, but not Joe Biden. Okay, Joe Biden's mind was going in his 70s. So it's a good point. It's a good point. I think I certainly agree with that. Gabe R. So thank you for the $5, Gabe. Let's read some of our chats here. Kair St. Joseph says, yes, too many quotes. Perhaps. I think it's Ty, says, I've been living under a rock and coming to Vince for enlightenment. Actually, know nothing. Well, thank you, Ty, I appreciate the support, Ty. And, you know, listen. I get this conversation a lot in my personal life. People will tell me, you know, they're like conservative, but they'll tell me, oh, I don't really know that much about politics. I should get more informed. I always tell people, it's not really tantamount that you care particularly about politics. I actually think part of the problem in our country is that too many people care. Honestly, you ask why our country's so divided and stuff. It's arguably because too high of a segment of the population is passionate about politics. For most of our country's history, that was not true. You know, some people were into it, blah, 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 but it wasn't something your average person cared about a whole lot. And but at the same time, I suppose you could make a counter argument that the problem in politics really is that too many of the wrong people care about politics, and I guess that's an argument to be made too. But I appreciate the support, Ty. And Omar Zapata gifted 5 VinceDao memberships. Thank you very much, Omar. Appreciate it. God bless you, man. Christopher for $2 says, Vivek skepticals are wary of his Trump vibes. Thank you for the $2, Christopher. I think on the anti-Trump side, yes. I think also though a lot of Vivek skeptics are also skeptical of his Obama vibes. That's something else to be pointed out and considered, because he definitely does have a very JFK 08 Obama-esque personality, right? And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing necessarily, because, you know, the problem with Obama or JFK was not their personality. The problem was policy, right? Liberal policy. But at the same time, I don't know if that type of personality necessarily works for a conservative male running for president, if you get my drift, if that makes sense. Because there's something about that personality that works well for a liberal, whether it's Obama, whether it's JFK or RFK, right? Sort of that soft-spoken but kind of inspiring hope, you know, nice guy kind of vibe. There's something about it that's very disarming, yes, but also kind of fits on a liberal, right? Because the fear very often of liberalism is, oh, they're too extreme. Because America also, keep in mind, is generally classified as a center-right country. So the fear when it comes to liberalism very often is, hey, they may be extreme. And so JFK or Obama did a good job at not seeming too extreme, even though Obama obviously was. And JFK's legacy is mixed in my eyes, but you know what I mean. But the thing about running as a conservative is there's just something different about the aura of that, right? If you're a conservative, you really more so want to inspire. You look at Trump, you look at Ronald Reagan, you look at people like that. They more so inspire strength, right? Hey, like, I'm a big boy, right? Like, strength. I'm a masculine guy, patriotism, rah, America. I'm a fighter. That personality tends to work more on conservatives, whereas the sort of Beto O'Rourke, nice guy personality works more so on a liberal candidate, and that kind of makes sense, right? Now, I'm not saying it can't work for a Republican. It's just never really been tried, but I think that, honestly, more so than anything, is what a lot of people are skeptical. And I get that comment all the time. People say, Vivek gives off Obama vibes. Which, like I said, not saying that's an inherently bad thing, because Obama's problem was not his personality. He was pretty charismatic. You can't deny that. The problem was what he stood for. But again, I do see the concern, and I'm honestly not sure if it works for a Republican, but we'll have to see. We'll see, especially in the future, if he runs in 28, how that actually goes over with people. But, all right, Christopher for $5 says, I do think the wrong people care too much. I said it before, we're living in a country where sinning is a right. Thank you for the $5, Christopher. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's so true. That's exactly the country we live in. All right, with that said, folks, I'm winding down the stream here, so I'll end about 8:59, 9 o'clock. So, last call for Super Chats, okay? Last call. Reading them all now, so be sure to get them in now so we can get to all of them, and I'll end the stream here in just a few minutes. All right, here we go. Gianna for $5 says, you need to go on the Daily Wire or do something with John Doyle. Well, I've done something with both of those people. I've been on the Daily Wire. I was on the Michael Knowles show, and I've done different stuff with John. We did there's some random interviews together that you can find on YouTube. I think we did one recently with Andrew Says. So it does exist, but it says the most base collabs ever. John and you are the GOAT. Based men in beards telling facts. Appreciate it, Gianna. Thank you very much. And they do exist. They do exist. In fact, wait. There's a very important John Doyle collab that I don't think most people have seen. But, this is actually the most important thing we'll end the show with this, okay? Any last Super Chats, I'll read them. But this is arguably the most important collaboration with John Doyle of all time. All right? Here it is. Let me share the screen.
This man's name is Ishmael Brady.
Yes.
Under the Trump administration, he was a world-renowned neurosurgeon.
This is a very important video.
Wait, okay. Doc, that's not the way you're supposed to make the incision. This is how I'm making the incision now.
Oh, doctor, you cured my cancer. Thank you. Thank you very much, doctor. Thank you. Come again. Thank you, doctor.
But since Brandon took office, Ishmael was never the same again.
So you've known Ishmael for years. Can you explain exactly how he ended up in the state that he's in right now?
It's a really great question. I don't know if anyone could speak to exactly how he got to this point, but I think if I had to pick maybe a catalyst, it would be right around the time when the guy who he didn't want to win the election won the election.
So we can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden has been elected.
Did you guys get that? Biden literally... This is Joe Biden's America. He literally made a world-renowned black neurosurgeon into a homeless man drinking Hennessy out of a brown paper bag. This is Joe Biden's America. This is so real.
Elected president of the United States.
Hey, sir, won't you lend me $1? There you go, man. A Kroger card, too. Yeah.
drugs. So look at what
So you're
Brandon
saying
is
that
doing.
upon the beginning of the Biden economy, it was just so poorly handled that he ended up losing his job and living on the streets?
I mean, not even. He really just kind of lost his mind.
So true.
Doctor, what happened? Election.
Is there anything we can do to mend his current
Election.
situation? What can the viewers learn from this?
There's no guarantees.
Ishmael
but
is
there is
all
one
of
idea
us.
that we think is worth trying. Dr. Brady, I need to show you something. It's okay, Dr. Brady. You don't have to be afraid anymore.
President Obama was constantly chewing gum. And then on top of that, he took it out of his mouth, put it back. You can't do it. It's disgusting.
Wait, I have a job to do.
President Donald J. Trump approves this message.
This is so true. Okay, this is so true. So people can never say I've never collabed with John Doyle, because we've done this. Okay, we've literally done it. All right, last super chat of the night. Real Texan Politics says that video seems like your average high school AVP production. Well, the backstory that basically is that basically was actually what it was. Okay, that you're not far off from the truth of the origin of that video. But also would be interesting to see a collab between you and Brett Cooper if possible. Thank you for the $5, Real Texan Politics. We've actually done one. It just never got aired. Okay. In 2020, I've known Brett Cooper since before she was famous. In 2020, when I was in high school, and I think she was like a freshman at UCLA, we recorded something for PragerU that was supposed to be a debate show. It was supposed to be a middle ground style, like Jubilee Vice style debate show. It never actually piloted. So that actually does exist. But yeah, we should do a new one. Thank you for the $5, Real Texan Politics. And if we got nothing else, let me check Super Chats one last time. I believe we're good to go here. Let me make sure did we get anything on Rumble? Shout out to the Rumble chat. Okay. All right, if we got nothing else, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. I appreciate it very much. GOP Shiandra says on Rumble, it'd be helpful to learn how to pronounce Kamala Harris. Google can help. All right. No, I'm sorry. Not to get into this with the lovely Rumble gang. And not to take shots at the fans like this. But that is a stupid comment. Okay, you pronounce Kamala Harris's name wrong. Don't you know it's Kamala? They do the same thing with Vivek, don't they? Don't you know it's Vivek? If you guys are going to be, I'm not joking about this. If you guys are going to be social justice warriors about the pronunciation of foreign, non-Western names, then go to the other freaking party. I'm serious. Are we really doing this? You have Republicans running the same cover of the people. You sound no different. You actually are no different than CNN back in 2020 when they were attacking Tucker Carlson for saying his name wrong. Unbelievable. Her name in English is spelled Kamala, okay? And by the way, it's not that I can't pronounce Kamala. It's that the amount of people who have become rabid over pronouncing the name wrong, it's intentional, okay? Do you guys understand? It's intentional. I literally say her name wrong knowingly on purpose because the fact that she became such a rabid SJW over it, like, vindicates that, hey, screw you, I'm going to keep saying it wrong. Unbelievable. It's the same thing with Vivek. Vivek has literally said he doesn't care how you pronounce his name, so who cares? Okay? I don't see why you people feel the need to run cover for your sake. But look at how it's spelled in English. Okay? Vivek. And in a Republican presidential primary, you're running as a Republican. You're running as a conservative. You talk all the time about American identity. That candidate does. And yet his people come to be mad that I pronounce his name in an American way. The horror. The horror. Get out of here. I can't stand. I can't stand when people are like that. I really can't stand it. You know? You're going to become offended because I'm saying her name wrong. Oh my gosh, guys. No. You said her name wrong. Yeah, I'm a Republican, but I think it's insulting when you pronounce non-English names in an English way. Yeah, you know, I believe in like assimilation and stuff, but how dare you speak the English language correctly? How dare you not use... Unbelievable. I can't believe someone who uses the app of Rumble would make a comment like that. If you are mad about that I pronounce Kamala Harris's name wrong, then unsubscribe to my Rumble. Seriously. That's akin to the It's Yay crowd. Yeah, same bull crap, literally. Being too self-serious is a terrible thing. It's true. It's true. It's true. You know? All right, folks. I'll call it here. Thank you to everyone. Oh, wait, I missed a super chat. Hold on. Christopher Allseen for $5 says, that woke doc you played at the end of your last stream about how Japanese and blacks are hilarious was hilarious. I hope no one actually believes it. Thank you for the $5, Christopher. Christopher, I don't know what you're talking about. That's all like fact checked by real American patriots. All right, with that said, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Be sure to leave a like before you go. Let's get to 100 likes before we call it a night. And I'll see you all live tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, for the live watch party of the Republican debate. So be sure to come watch the Republican debate with us. And until next time, Alpha Moves only. God bless. Have a very good night and peace. Now, you know what? I'm still mad about that comment. I'm still in shock about that comment. Because it's one thing to get mad at me saying Vivek's name wrong because, oh, he's a Republican, he's on our side. You are running cover for her? For Kamala Harris. Oh, it's Kamala. Say her name right. Say her name right. Who the freak? What freaking channel do you think you're on? And by the way, you act as if it's horribly wrong, you know? If it were totally... But it's like Kamala versus Kamala. It's basically the same thing. Like, it's such a minor change in one inflection. And you're gonna take the time out of your day to leave a comment that, oh, you're pronouncing the diversity vice president's name wrong. How dare you? No place in this party. No place in this party. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. See y'all later.
Okay, I just want to make this little video today because it's a little concerning. I'm seeing a lot of